Okay. All right, still a few people that need to filter in, but we'll just get started. Okay, so all right, let's see. You guys can all see my terminal and everything, right? That look good? Okay. So all right, this is the terminal, or the command line. So this is what your computer looks like without a GUI, or a graphical user interface, a GUI. So Windows, when it came out, was a really big deal because it made computers more approachable. It made them more visual. It was easier for people to interact with the computer because they could go in and click around, and they didn't have to be typing, and didn't have to be as aware of how the system works. And so yeah, it's really little. Okay, so the terminal, what's called on Mac, it's a it's a tool that allows you to work with the computer directly without doing it through the user interface, without having to click around with your mouse. And so you can go through and type in different commands and navigate around and do things like that. Let's see. Sorry, 1 second. All right. Yeah, so if you're on Windows, we have a tool that you can download and use so you can have the same commands. For right now, there will be a little bit of a difference in the commands that you type between what I'll be typing. Let's see. Okay. What we're going to do is have you do, it's called git bash. And we'll walk, we'll be helping some Windows users out with that a little bit later. But that will allow you to use the same commands. All right. Okay. So some of the basic commands, ls lists the contents of the directory or the folder that you're in. So right now, ls on Windows, that would be dir. dir would be the command on Windows. That doesn't work here, but if you're on like Ubuntu or on a Mac, then ls is the command that you use. I can use touch, and then the name of a file to create a file. I can do make directory, and then mkdir some folder that creates a folder. To navigate into a folder, I do cd space, then the name of the folder. ls shows it's empty. Touch hello.txt. ls, I can see that I've created the file. cd ... takes me back up a level. ls shows what I have. So here's my folder, cd space, the name of the folder. Now I'm in it. And then you can see my path has changed. Type in ls. I see here's the name of the file that I created. I'm going up a folder. So it's just kind of a way to navigate through the file system. And that was really fast, what I just did. But it's something where you'll want to just kind of write down some of those like basic commands and then just like get in there and experiment with it. And this is not super important to what we're doing right now. I'm just kind of showing you at a high level so we can dive in more in depth into the more important stuff that we need to know. There, this is a little bigger. Okay. Yeah, so you can use bash. So there's a tool called git bash that you can download. on Windows, and then that will allow you to use the same commands that you would use here, either in like a Linux environment or on a Mac, which is good because that's the type of stuff that you're going to be using if you're going to be SSHing in the servers and stuff like that with DevOps, and generally you're using like an Ubuntu, like a Linux build, but yeah, but it kind of depends on how you do it. So yeah, so if you have Git Bash installed, then yeah, then you just use these same commands. So all right, so I want to talk about Git real quick. So Git is a version control tool. So imagine that if you and 20 people were tasked with writing like 100-page research paper for a class in college, and like you guys have to all get in there and write the different portions of it, and you know, and you can't necessarily say, all right, you get these 10 pages, you get these 10, but they have to be all cohesive, and you're going to go through and edit each other's work, and you're all going to be working on it at the same time. How do you keep the files in sync? How do you keep track of changes? How do you keep that from becoming a huge mess? And so that's what Git is all about. Git is how do you have multiple people working on the same files and editing the same files, and how do you like manage those changes and keep it in sync? So this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. With Git, you can get into some very, very sophisticated workflows. There's a lot of really cool things you can do. Today, we're just going to cover the very, very basic, very, very basic commands. These are just the very beginning of it. And then these are the things that you're going to be repeating on a daily basis. So, all right. So when we and so we have a little mini project we're actually going to have you guys work through, so we can practice this real quick. Let me URL wrap browser window over. So right here we have this JavaScript 1 mini file. And we're all going to kind of work through this right now so we can make sure that we're all up to speed and on the same page with how to use a version control. So, so Git, if you do not have Git installed on your computer, Bash, but go and download Git onto your computer. So here is the link. Let's see. I'm not familiar with Subversion. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a tool built on top of Git. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Yes, I don't know about Subversion, but Git is the most widely used one. It's the one that most companies using Git. All companies should be using some form of version control. Most of them nowadays, at least, are using Git. And then, so GitHub is a cloud storage place where you can stick your code. Anyone can view it, but it's your code will go up there. It's kind of like the social network for programmers, but you can push all your code up on there. And so GitHub works with Git. So Git and GitHub are two different things. Git can work without GitHub. GitHub is a company that has free online code storage, and it works really well with Git. And so a lot of companies, most companies use GitHub if they're using Git. There's also like, there's a few other alternatives to it as well. But yeah, Bitbucket is the other one. Honestly, it's like their pricing tiers and stuff like that. The nice thing about GitHub is that one's huge, and like that one's the one that most people are using. So Git would be a tool that you would use within Terminal. And so it may be already on yeah, so go ahead and well, type in, if you're not sure if you have Git or not, just type in the word Git into the command line. And if you see a bunch of stuff like this, that means you have it. If you see like, if it says command not found, that means you don't have Git installed. is that means it doesn't know what the word Git is. Right here, I just typed in a bunch of gobbledygook because I already have Git installed. So you should see a bunch of stuff like this print out if you have Git. So, so test that out. All right, let me zoom this in a little bit more. People are still having issues. Let me just make it really big. Okay. Hopefully that helps. And it probably has to do with like screen sizes and just like the resolutions between what I'm using and what you're looking at and like all that. Yeah, so great questions. Yeah, so it's all kind of related, version control. Yeah, so Bitbucket has, yeah, it's mainly it's the pricing differences between the two. Let's see, with specific, so this is the messy part of the class because we have all you guys coming together and you all have very different environments on your computers. And so, a lot of this, you're going to have like individual questions about like, mine doesn't work or can I get help with this? We'll work through that after this lecture. And then TAs and instructors will be able to come in and help you get your system squared away. So right now, we'd be here all afternoon if I were to go through and help what's going on here. So, so we're not going to help it like right now in the lecture, but so if you have a specific like mine doesn't work kind of a question, then we'll go through and work through that in the next little bit. So just hang in there. Yeah, so David. All right, then Eileen's asking, can I use VI? Yeah, super steep learning curve, but if you want to, sure. I think it's a fantastic editor. Vim, it's a great editor. I use it, but it's not for the faint of heart. And initially, I would recommend that most people use it, but if you have like a little more programming experience and you're already kind of familiar with it, then yeah, go for it. Otherwise, I would say stick with VS Code. All right, so okay, so if we go back to our diagram again, let me draw this out, make it a little more visual. Where did I miss out? Oh, there it is. Okay, so all right, so again, if you think back to GitHub, here's the Lambda School repo of JS1. All right, so it's up in the cloud. The cloud means it's a bunch of computers sitting in a server center or data center somewhere, and owned by Amazon or Google or someone. And so there's on one of those computers, there is this folder that has all this code. And so what we're going to do is instead of you guys just like copying it, what you're going to do is you're going to fork it. What that does is it makes a copy of it. But instead of being LS, it's going to be your like, oops. Oh, come on, it's not writing. Okay, it'll be like under your account. So it's going to make a copy of it in the cloud. It's still not on your computer yet, but it's made a copy under your GitHub account. And then at this point, you will clone it down. And I'll walk you through how to do the cloning process. So cloning it. Cloning is a fancy word for download. You're downloading it onto your computer with all of the Git version control stuff built in. So that's the difference between downloading it. When you clone it, it like downloads it, and then the folder's already connected back up to your folder that you have on GitHub. So so now JS1 is downloaded onto your machine, and it's on your computer. So and then as you make changes to it, we're going to do this thing called adding, committing, and pushing. And so adding is when you select the files that you've modified that you want to save. A commit is like a hard save. And then when you push, that pushes your updated changes up to the cloud. And then at the very end, after you push your changes up, you can submit what's called a pull request back to the original repository, a PR, pull request. And what this is a request to take your changes that you made and merge them into the original. So you don't directly overwrite the changes in the original master copy. There's people that control that. And then you make a request and say, hey, I've changed some stuff. I think we should make these changes. And then they can accept it and merge your changes in. So this is the workflow that we're going to use. You're going to submit a pull request, and you're not actually going to we're not actually going to merge your requests. We're never going to merge them, but we just want you to get used to this flow. So you're going to submit the pull request, and then that'll be the end of it. So you'll fork your homework, clone it, add commit push, do your work, and then submit a pull request back. And so you got this little like triangle thing going here. All right. So this is going to be the workflow. So I'm going to walk you through this right now with the repo. So let me. All right. Let's get that. All right. So here's what the JS1-Mini assignment. So this is the little mini project. Okay. So difference between get clone and get pull. Get clone is the initial download. Get pull is when you want to update changes. Because what happens is, like in a real project, if you fork a version of it, clone it, and you're doing work on it, and then let's say somebody else, because there's 100 engineers working on it, they push some changes in, and you want to get those changes, you'd have to do a pull again. And there's some different workflows there that are more sophisticated, and 5 months from now, 4 months from now, you guys will be getting into that quite a bit because you'll have to work on a team and have to keep your stuff in sync. Right now, we're just doing the basics. We just want to get the code onto your machine, so you guys can work on the assignment. So that's all you need to worry about right now, and then we'll go very, very deep with it. One second. Okay. All right, so here we are, JavaScript 1 Mini. So first thing I'm gonna do is fork it. So if you see right here, the fork button. Let's see, did I post? Oh, oops, yeah, don't do mine. Yeah, I posted my fork. So let me, so I posted my copy of it. Good catch, Courtney. So, all right, so I just posted the new link. So if you look at that one, under Lambda School, so it's /Lambda, you can look at the URL and it kind of tells you, so /Lambda School /JavaScript 1 Mini. So JavaScript 1 Mini, so we're gonna fork. I fork it, I've already forked it, but what that's gonna do is it's going to copy it over to, my account. So under my GitHub account, I now have a copy of the folder, and it says here, it says forked from this one. And so it's like I made a copy of it from the original, and this is where the original's at. Okay, so now if I have Git downloaded, I'm gonna go to clone or download this button, get the drop down, and I'm gonna get this URL, I click the button, and it's gonna copy it to my clipboard, come into the terminal. Now I'm going to do the clone step, bring it down onto my machine. Git clone space, and then I paste in the URL. Okay, so git clone, and then the URL, enter, and then boom. So now I type in ls, so I can see the contents, and we see here is JavaScript 1 Mini. The folder was downloaded. And if I now navigate into it, and this is all being recorded, so you guys can reference this later. I navigate in there, and then here are the files that were in that folder that came from GitHub. So I can look inside of the script file, and here's this console.log hello world. Put a comment. Hi there. Yeah, so I'm just adding a comment. That's all I'm doing is changing to change this file. I'm just adding a comment in there. I'm going to save and quit. Sorry, that's my winter clip. Okay, all right. So now I've changed the file. So script.js has been updated. And so now what I can do is I can say git status. So git status tells me what the status is of the repo. And right now it says modified script.js. So it says this file was modified. You don't have to do this, but you can do git diff. I can type this in, and it shows me like, what are the changes. It says, all right, the new line is gone from the end of the file, and then it added a comment. So just so it kind of shows the changes. So I can see, okay, so I've changed this file. So git status, git diff, and I'm going to write these commands down for you so you can follow them. So now if I do git status again, I'll see, all right, so I have this modified file. Now what I need to do is I'm going to stage it for a commit. What this means is if I have a folder of files, and let's say I modified a bunch of them, let's say I modified 20 files, and I want to do a hard save on some of the files, I want to select which files I want to do the save on, because maybe I don't want to save all 20 files right now. I just want to do on the 10. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say git add, and I can either select the file name, or I could say git add -- all. That stages all the files for commit. Now git status, we see that it's now in green. And so it says changes to be committed. It's in green. So it says, all right, you've selected this file. This file will be committed. And a commit, again, is like a hard save. So if I do git commit -m, then I type in a little save message. So it's like my first commit. Then I hit enter. All right, so it did a commit. So a commit is like a snapshot of the current repo. It's a hard save. It's something that you can revert back to. So if you make a bunch of weird changes, you can go back to it. So, you know, when you're editing your file and you just hit save, like, yeah, you can do like undo and stuff like that, but if you close your browser, close your editor, restart your computer, you may not be able to do that. What a commit is, it's like a little snapshot at that point in time. And at any point in the future, like 5 years from now, or if you've made 10,000 commits, you can go back to that specific point and revert back to that point. And so that's what a commit does. That's the cool thing about a commit. It would be like if you're typing an essay in Microsoft Word, and every time you saved, there was like a little like point, and you could go back to that specific save if you needed to. And the reason we do that is maybe you get your code base into a good point, and then all of a sudden you break something, or you push your code into production and your website's broken, and all of a sudden people can't buy stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, like we're losing, hundreds of dollars every minute. Like we need to just, we can't take time to fix it now. We need to go back to a previous working state and then figure out what the heck is wrong with it. And so you can jump back to a previous commit, push the old code up, and then so now your site's up and working, so now people can buy stuff again. And then you go in, and then you and your team debug and figure out what went wrong. And so that kind of stuff happens on major websites like all the time. Like they push up, like, oh no, breaking bug, roll back to a previous commit. And so it's like this emergency way of being able to hop back to a previous save. So again, this is kind of high level. This isn't going to sink in yet for most of you. So for right now, it's just a list of commands that you're going to type in. And then that's going to help you get your code saved. So I committed it, so it's saved. So now my code locally on my computer has been saved into this new state. And so now I need to push that up to the cloud. So right now, if I kind of annotate this again, let me do this real quick. So here's, this is version A up in Lambda School, and then up in the cloud, you fork it, then you clone it down. All right, so you have version A on your computer. Then you make some changes, and now it's version B. And so then you do an add and a commit, and that saves it, all right? So now you have version B on your computer. So the one up on your account is still out of date. And so you have to do a push. That's what the push does. The push pushes up your changes, and this is now version B. And the pull request is saying, hey, Lambda School, I want to change version A to my version B. And we're not going to do the change because it's just a homework assignment. But if you're working in a company in a team, then they would merge your change in, and then now the master version would be version B. So that's the flow here. So now I'm going to do a push and push up the version B that I just changed up to my copy. So git push origin master. So again, this will get broken down, and you'll understand this much better again as we go along. But it's just kind of a lot of stuff day one to just get going. There's a lot of little little things, a lot of boilerplate we have to work through. So get push origin master, I do get status, it's all up to date. And now if I go back and look here and look at my script file on GitHub, we'll see that my comment, hi there, is now up here. It's up on the website. So, and then now what I do is if I do new pull request, this button right here, it says base fork, this one. Actually, you can just leave that. That'll automatically kind of get set, and then just hit create pull request. There's the title, my pull request, create pull request. And now, if we go to Lambda School JavaScript 1 Mini, I can go to the pull request folder, and I can look, and in here, and I see there's a couple of you guys that have opened some pull requests in the last little bit. So like Courtney and Peter, and shoot, that is Terry, I guess, German, or Hermann. But I come in and I look in here and I can see these are all the pull requests. So if I look at Courtney's pull request, I can come in and I can look at the files changed, and I see she added console.log hello world. And so I can see this nice little diff, okay? So because it shows me like what's been added, and so the instructors will look at this, and we can use this to evaluate where's your code is at. So we're expecting a pull request from you for each homework assignment, whether it's completed or not. So, all right, so we're doing this little mini project right now. So we're going to work through this mini assignment. What we want you to do is fork it, clone it, create a file, just add in the name, like, or just put in like one line of code, console.log hi or something like that. Push it, do a pull request. And then that's what we're all going to work on right now, just to make sure everyone's environment's good to go, make sure the terminal's good to go, make sure that you're used to doing your forking, cloning, pushing, all that stuff. So that's what we're going to work on right now for about half an hour. And then I'll be there to answer questions, and TAs will be able to help you as well. So to get help on assignments, when you're working on assignments and you want help, I want you to go to the CS7 help channel. So let me, so it's, so the name of it is, I'm just typing it in here so you can, well, I'll type it in the CS7 channel. So it's CS7 help. So go and join it there. So it's already been created. So CS7_help. So if you go and jump in there, that's where, so everyone go and join that channel. Every single person go and make sure that you're in that channel. And that's the channel that the TAs and the instructors are going to be watching. So if you ask questions to like a TA or an instructor in CS7, they might miss it. So put it in CS7 help. And then within CS7 help, there's a specific format that we want you to follow with your questions. If you look at Tommy's question up a little bit, where he uses the red question mark, that's the format we want you to ask. So we want you to do question, how do I commit my code, or something like that. So if you see that as an example, so we want you to type in colon, the word question, colon, like that. That's how you get the red question mark to appear. But use a red question mark. That way it just kind of jumps out, because sometimes people leave comments in there and it's hard to sift through as a TA or an instructor and figure out like who's asking the question and who's not. And we want to make sure everyone gets helped. So use the red question mark, and then we will start a thread off of that comment. So so then like I made a comment on it, and then that's how we can, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's how you ask questions. Yes, people are asking about the -m when you're doing committing. If you leave the -m off, then you'll use Vim with it. And so you can just use the -m for right now. That's something we'll go into more later. Yeah. Oh, so the pull request, yeah, so you don't make a pull request for every commit. Yes, this is a good question, Aaron. So when you're working on your project, so when you start working on the JavaScript 1 assignment, you will, when you start working on the JavaScript 1 assignment, you'll want to commit often. So you commit often. You don't necessarily have to push often, but you want to commit often. And then you do the pull request at the very end when it's all done. So the pull request happens at the very end when it's all done. Yeah, and if you look here in the JavaScript 2 mini or the JavaScript 1 mini README up in here, it has all the steps in here. So fork the repo, clone the fork, and then it has the command in there. And then add a file to the repo called script.js, consisting of a line of code. And then add your changes, commit your changes, and then push. And then submit a pull request back to the repo that you forked from. So these are all the instructions right here of how to work through that, that flow. Yes, fork first. So fork, clone, then create your file. Just follow these steps exactly and don't go out of order. Just follow these exactly. And then we're also going to download Node. Node is a C++ application that allows you to run JavaScript outside of the browser. We use that to run our tests. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on this now for well. Okay, real quick, I'll walk through one more example real quick using the JavaScript 1 assignment. Because there's one extra step with JavaScript 1 that you're going to need to do. So with the JavaScript 1 assignment, again, we fork it. I already have a fork. So my username on GitHub and on Slack is Sun Jiaming. I lived in Taiwan for a couple years and speak Mandarin. Anyway, so it's always a convenient username that's never taken. So all right, so here's at my fork. I'm at my fork, so I'm going to clone it. So I want to make sure I'm not in the same folder because it would add it to that folder. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do git clone, git space clone space the URL, and it has this little .git. So make sure you copy it from that clone button. All right, so now I do ls. Now I see I have JavaScript 1 in here. So I'm going to navigate into that folder. ls, I see here's all my stuff. Okay. So with the JavaScript 1 assignment, this is where it's a little bit different. When you navigate into it, you're going to type in a command, npm I, and hit enter. That's going to install a couple things into the folder. The instructions are in the README. So I'm walking you through this, but the instructions are in the README. So see, run the command npm I to install needed node packages. These are third-party code modules that we've brought in to help us run the tests. And you'll be learning about how to use this, different modules, and how to use all this stuff going forward. It's a cool way to be able to build pretty significant things with a little bit of code. All right, and then now we're going to, so now that I have it going, I install the packages. Now I type in npm test, and it's going to run the tests for all the different files. And we see here 55 failed tests for test suites file. There's a test suite for each file. As I make each, as I write the function properly, the tests will pass. So if I type in, and I can type in the name of a file specifically. So in my source folder, I have this file arrays.js. So if I do npm test arrays.js, well, arrays, actually you can just type in arrays. And it's just going to run the tests for the arrays file. And so these are all the failed tests. If I go up, it gives me a little bit more specific detail about each one. So here's like the flatten, filter, find, reduce, So these are how you run the tests. And so you will then write your code to get the tests to pass. And we don't have a lot of time left in the day. So, we'll do our best this afternoon to get as much of it done as we can. And then tomorrow, you'll also have time to, kind of work on this as well. So there's a lot to do, and there's been a lot to cover this first day. So don't be stressed out if you're not, getting even anywhere close tonight. Just do your best. Okay, I'm gonna go back and look at some more questions. Yeah, I'll probably just delete it. Yeah, just delete the repo and then refork it from Lambda School. Sorry about the confusion. Syntax for a pull request. So a pull request, you're going to do that with the GUI. You're going to do that on GitHub. So there's no command you're going to type. You could, there are ways to submit pull requests from the command line, but don't worry about doing that. As far as which version of Node to install, install the most recent one. It's like 8 point something, I think. Yeah. And then, let's see, what does Sun Jiaming mean in Mandarin? Kind of sounds like Benjamin. Jiaming, and then Sun was the surname that I used. It kind of sounds like Nelson. But yeah, that's, yeah. But one of my friends helped me pick it out. Taiwanese friend. Yeah, is it okay to use the GitHub desktop application if you cannot configure it to bash for now? Yeah, I would like you to get familiar with the command line, just because it's, we want you to be comfortable in there. You'll be very uncomfortable in it today, but as you struggle through it for a few weeks, you'll be in you'll start to feel really confident with it. Let's see, npm error, I'll take a look at that in a minute. Which version of Node? Oh yeah, are the arrays and callbacks due tomorrow or Wednesday? So arrays and callbacks, ideally tomorrow, are due tomorrow. We don't have a lot of time this afternoon. The guest lecture too went long, so that took an hour and a half of work time out. And so it's not like a hard thing. JavaScript 1 in its entirety is supposed to be done by Wednesday morning. And so if you don't have callbacks and that stuff done tonight, you can go back and finish that tomorrow. So that's fine. But that's all for today and tomorrow. JavaScript 1, the assignment that you're forking and cloning, that's all today and tomorrow, those 4 things. And those 4 files that are in there. And we're going to cover the other files, like the information for them and how to run those tests tomorrow. And then tomorrow we'll also be spending time reviewing these assignments and answering more questions. A lot of it is you just have to dive in and get lost in it and get confused and bang your head against the wall a little bit. And then when we get back together and start talking about it and lecturing on it, then it'll start to click and make sense. So we kind of just need to getting to a point where we just need to turn you loose on it and let you do your best at it. Anything in particular you want us to name the folder? No, just keep it organized. Maybe call it Lambda School. So it's yeah, it's not too important. That's just for how you want to keep it organized on your computer. Good question. Let's see, I'm going to do npm test. It shows the result of all 4 files. Anyway, to see one by one if I'm moving it from the folder. Yeah, so type in npm test space and then the name of the file you want to test. And then it will just test that one file. So, for example, if I did npm test arrays, it's just going to test the arrays file. You can leave off the .js extension because it's going to assume it's a JavaScript file. Because if you're running these tests, it would be weird if you're trying to do it on a file that's like a Python file or something. So it's going to assume it's a JavaScript file. What does the -u flag do in a git push, and should we ever use it? I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to look it up. I never use it, so if that answers your question. It probably does something cool that would be good. Yeah, I don't know. With Git, 95% of the time you're using it, you're just doing these basic things that we talked to you about. And then occasionally when you're like working in a team, like maybe you get into some weird flow or like there's some like weird mistake or merge error and you have to go through and fix it or merge conflicts, et cetera. And so, so we'll get into that right now. The stuff that we've given you today is that's 90% of what you're doing with Git, and then those commands will help you get through pretty much everything. If you get into like a weird state or something gets broken or whatever, that's when a lot of those other commands come into place. But for right now, just the stuff we've given is sufficient. Good question. Yeah, the SU flag on every push. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna go look that up. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember the stuff. They probably have a good reason for it if they required you to do it on every push. The companies I've been at, we never insisted on that. But okay, so I'm gonna turn you guys loose. If you have questions again about getting stuff to work on your machine, getting the flow to work, put them in CS7 help, the help channel. Make sure you do your red question mark. We'll start a thread off of that, and then after, well, what we'll probably do is at the end of the hour at 3 p.m. Pacific time, we'll get back together and then just kind of answer any more questions, review. That'll be a little more of an optional review, and then you can just keep going full speed ahead on the homework assignments. But right now it's there's going to be some of you that you're probably going to have some weird environment issues on your computer, and we're going to have to debug that and figure that out. And you may not get as much time today to work on these assignments. That's fine. Just do as much as you can, and then then tomorrow as well. The big thing this week, the big goal for this week, is we need you to get confident with like the fundamentals. It's not that we need you to complete every assignment 100%. It's that we want you going into next week to feel confident with for loops and arrays and objects and functions. Like we want that to feel comfortable to you. Not necessarily that you've mastered everything in entirety. It's just next week we shouldn't be taking time to teach what a for loop is. Like that's going to be assumed knowledge next week, and like using for each and stuff like that in a map, and like that should not be like we won't take time to explain that because we'll have other things that we'll need to move on to. So just do your best. If you're in class writing code the whole time when you're supposed to, then you're going to be in a good spot. All right. Okay, during lectures and stuff like now, you can ask your questions in CS7, but then like later when you're like just working on your assignments, put it in a CS7 help. Okay. Yeah, just use CS7 help. Don't put it in the other just like general help channel. Make sure all your questions specifically are within CS7 help. So. All right, so we're going to break, jump in, and we'll be answering questions. Thanks, everyone.